All right, so my name is Jessica Whitehead. I am here on behalf of the Kentucky Museum and Heritage Alliance, KMHA, to present our next Learn at Lunch. We're so excited about this series, and we're especially excited to have Patrick Donley here with us today. Patrick has been embarking on this incredible project I've gotten to see with my own eyes. So I encourage you, if you're in Louisville, to be able to take advantage of sort of meeting Patrick and seeing this in person as well. But Patrick is going to be giving us a wonderful tour of this incredible project called the Mary Street Midden Project. And we'll hear a little bit from Patrick about how this all began, how it got started. But first, allow me to just give him a sort of formal introduction so you know who's going to be speaking with you today. And then I will hand this over to him. And we will have a presentation and tour from Patrick. And then at the end, we'll open it up for questions. So if you have burning questions that you want to ask about what you've just seen, which I'm sure you will, there will be that opportunity at the end. So Patrick Donley is a multidisciplinary artist whose career spans painting, sculpture, music, and most recently, an unexpected foray into archaeology. He holds a Bachelor of Arts from Davidson College and a Master of Fine Arts from Northwestern University. And Patrick has contributed significantly to the arts through his work with several esteemed institutions, including gallery management at the Institute of Contemporary Art in Boston and collection handling for the Speed Art Museum in Louisville. And a longtime champion of the local arts community, he was also the proud owner of the former Zephyr Gallery in Louisville. With a deep appreciation for history and creativity, Patrick is now embracing this exciting new chapter, one that blends his artistic sensibilities with the thrill of discovery. And this is as the director of the Mary Street Midden Project. So we're really lucky to have Patrick with us today. One thing I would note for all of you who are on here is please mute your microphones and potentially switch your view, your speaker view in Zoom to the speaker section so that the person who's talking, Patrick, is of the largest on your screen and you can really see what he's showing you. So I'm going to go ahead and mute, and Patrick, take it away.
Unmute. Okay, I'm officially unmuted. And let's see. Okay, well, I'm okay for right now. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Mary Street Midden Project. Um, it's a very complicated story, but I've been in this 1920s warehouse building for over 30 years, and I was getting ready to sell it. This is where I have made art since 1995, and I was ready to downsize. And 7 years ago, a groundhog revealed herself to me, and so I thought, well, this is not something I want to try to sell the building as is with a groundhog. So I tried to trap her, and she foiled me 3 times. And then one day I went down into our basement. The floor of the basement was broken, and there were huge chunks of slab. It looked like plate tectonics. It was just an awful looking place, but it was structurally not unsound. But this allowed Phyllis to, I'm sorry, that's how I named the groundhog, to come and go and to burrow and tunnel from on top of the slab and then slip away underneath the slab. So one day I went into the basement, and there she was, and there was a pile of dirt. And that pile of dirt had in it a couple of bottles. And I was thinking, okay, they're beer bottles, great. And but those bottles turned out to be 19th century beer bottles, and adjacent to that were medicine bottles. And then I started like pulling more of the dirt out, and I found shards of porcelain and some pieces of stoneware and baby doll heads. And all of a sudden, it just clicked for me that maybe this was actually more than just construction trash. And so I went across the room and pulled up some slab and stuck my arm down underneath. And sure enough, more bottles, more artifacts, more things. The building's footprint is 2,000 square feet. So I'm thinking, okay, it can't be the entire building. So I went to another spot further back, and sure enough, more of the same material coming out. And that's when I realized that Phyllis has shown me that our building, built in 1920, was built on top of a dump. Now, at that time, we hadn't done any, we had no way to research it. So we didn't know that, as it turns out, this dump was a city dump used by the city of Louisville for the East Side collection. So we have I don't know if you're familiar with Louisville, but there's a section of town called Old Louisville, and then there's Smoketown, and we are in Germantown. And Smoketown and Old Louisville are the east side of town, as is Irish Hill. So they did local garbage collection back then. There's curbside, and they would do it with mule carts. And you would set your trash out, and then they would pick it up on certain days. They did east-west streets on one day and north-south streets on the other because it was a grid at the time. And then, as it turns out, there was a north dump, an east dump, a south dump, and a western dump. And we were the eastern dump. And so, thank you, Phyllis. And now, 7 years later, after excavating, I have unearthed thousands of artifacts. And I mean, like in the tens of thousands. And when enough people started asking me what the heck I was going to do with all this stuff, I basically sat down and I had a conversation with myself, and I said, you know what? I own the building. This is really important because all of these artifacts have a story to tell, and that story is the history of the city of Louisville in as it was 100 years ago, 120 years ago, actually 150 years ago. And so I decided that I was going to create a museum. So that's when Groundhog Archaeology was born. That is our 501c3, and that is the parent company, if you will, for the Mary Street Midden Project. And so in the last, that happened about 3 years ago. And so in the last 3 years, we have started to meet with other museum professionals like Jessica and people down at the Filson and people at the Fraser and the Speed, and had them in and given them the tour and talked about, we're looking at decorative arts, we're looking at bottles and glass and fabric, hats, tchotchkes and dolls. Oh my God. So before I move forward, I want to switch my camera so I can start showing you some of these amazing things. And I'm just going to continue to talk and walk, and hopefully no one gets seasick. So hang on 2 seconds. Let's do the reverse. And there we go. Several years ago, the Gardner Narrative Gallery, who's very supportive of the project, offered to allow me to have an exhibition of these photographs that I've been creating. And the photographs are of the several of the artifacts, but using a light box to basically explore the glass for its inherent beauty. And it was such a great way to promote the idea of the museum. And it also turned me on to the idea that this museum will actually be something way more than just a dusty old bottle museum, and that we can actually explore things with a contemporary eye, a contemporary artist's eye, which is, I guess, that's me. And I do have museum background, but this is just an assortment of the kinds of things that we've been pulling out. Plates and cups that are restored. This is some fine porcelain, probably from Old Louisville, we would guess. This is actually one of the oldest pieces that we have. It is a hand-blown, mouth-blown. I think it is hand-etched with grape leaves and violet red glass, and 1840 to 1820. And but the majority of what we have comes from the latter half of the 19th century and the very beginning of the 20th century. And this, by the way, there she is in all her glory. That's Phyllis. Um, we have amazing things that have blown me away. This is a bottle of Paul Jones whiskey, who created the formula for what is now Four Roses, and this is a sample bottle. To have found both it just blows me away. But it has this great medallion blob that says Paul Jones whiskey, Louisville, Kentucky, and and then, some other amazing things. And you'll have to forgive me as I ramble, but um, this is a originally a mustard container that was created in 1898 to celebrate the sinking of the Maine battleship, which started the Spanish-American War of 1898. And there were several of them made. This is another of the battleships in the collection. I believe there were at least four designs. But we have the rich history of Louisville includes the distilling and brewing, but then there's just elements of everyday life. This is clothing, part of a cuff from either a shirt or a dress. We have ink, and I'll take a step to the side here because ink is one of the things that is one of my favorite things that I find, because we didn't have fountain pens in this period. We had ink that we had to dip our nibs in to write. And so ink was sold in small bottles so it wouldn't dry up and could be used quickly. And there are, I've lost count, but quite a few ink bottles in the collection. We have lots of bottles of all types, but some of them, volume is not what's going to make it an interesting museum exhibit. With the inks, I think volume is going to be something that I'm going to explore. But we have everyday products, Heinz ketchup, uh, Welch's concentrated grape juice, cures for consumption, bromo seltzer, Cudso's powder, which was like a talcum powder. This is the age of the rise of the grand patent medicine quackery snake oil salesman. This is Dr. Kilmer's swamp root extract, which was a cure for kidney, liver, and bladder problems. A cure. So this bottle predates 1906, which is when the Pure Food and Drug Act was enacted, which basically said that you can't claim anything's a cure unless you can prove it. And so all of a sudden, these guys had to throw away their bottles and remark them and remarket them as well. Um, but it is fascinating because we also have in this time period soda, the rise of soda. Everybody loved their soda, and you could add different flavors. So a lot of these companies, the Wallen brothers, who were known as the Irish Mafia, um, they, they you could get at like syrups and stuff that like we do today with soda fountains, where they flavor the soda water. And Louisville had a number of different bottlers and makers of sodas, including the Wallen brothers. And then this is a really great bottle, kind of a precursor to what we think of as a Coca-Cola bottle, but because it's got the skirt along the bottom. And this is the C.W. Springer Jr. Company in Louisville. And again, they were making soda at the time. And speaking of soda, Louisville was the home of the second largest bottling plant for Coca-Cola in the world in the country, probably in the world. Um, and, and hence we have a number of Coke bottles, and they vary in how their style and design. But this is called a straight-sided Coke because it has straight sides. And I'm holding out because in 1914, the design for what is known as the famous hobble skirt Coke bottle was patented, and it wasn't put into production until 1917. But that means our dump closed in 1918, so it's or 1919, and it's very possible that I will dig a hobble skirt. That's one that came from Iroquois Park in the woods, and it actually dates from the 50s. So we other things that we have in the collection, which is amazing. This is an intact 18, 20-inch tall butter churn that was made by John Bower. The John Bower pottery was over on Preston Street, and unfortunately, it's being held together by plastic. But you might be able to read that says John Bower Pottery, Louisville, Kentucky. John Bower is the precursor to what we know as Louisville stoneware. The legacy of John Bower is embodied in the Louisville stoneware. These are all pieces that I used the blue tape. That was something that I came up with. It's painter's tape. It's not like a masking tape, so it doesn't leave much of a residue. And it allows me to build things as we excavate them so that we know what we're missing. And unfortunately, with all of these pieces that you're seeing here, these were all excavated from our backyard in a hole that we have already abandoned. So what you see is what you get, which always breaks my heart because I really love it when we have a piece complete. Um, so I'm gonna take a little trip right here back to the back room. And as you can see, we have shelves and shelves and shelves of artifacts. And this is a lot of porcelain, fine porcelain. We have just, I can't tell you the thousands of bottles that we have, but they are every aspect of daily life that you can imagine, and everything from perfumes. These are patent medicines from the John Wyeth Company, as well as there's some bromo seltzer there. Uh, these are seed pots that are about an inch tall. I found them stacked exactly as you see them there in the ground, inside another pot, which was broken. We find figurines. They're porcelain figurines. A lot of them came from Germany and France. This is I think it's actually a man and a woman who were sitting on a swing, and there actually was string to suspend it. We have brick samples because if you traveled around and you wanted to sell your bricks, and this is the Laclede, St. Louis, Missouri, Laclede Company. Bottles of every size, every shape imaginable. A lot of these really small ones probably contained very powerful medicines, morphines, etc., that were had to be given in small doses. And then some amazing things like this little stoneware. Actually, I'm sorry, it's porcelain. The blank comes from Germany, but it's a stein. Sorry, I forgot where my lens is. um, it says "Our turn to crow now," and it has a rooster on it. That's a democratic symbol, and the rooster was used up until into the 1880s. But so this refers to a Democratic campaign we have not been able to trace. We are still working on that, but it's a pretty amazing little artifact. And I have two small shards of other ones, which blows me away too, because that's it. I've found those in one place and then uh, no more. Milk, mason jars. And when I get upstairs, I want to talk about food storage because that's something that we're not only discovering the history of glassmaking and bottling of all sorts of medicines and liquors and sodas, etc. But we're the food storage is really an important aspect of this period, which I'll explain in a minute. But this is just I could make you seasick with all of the amazing things that we have unearthed. These are all doll plates, teacups, pitchers. There's actually some mini stoneware jugs. And I always think about the little girl who, when it got broken and had to go to the dump, the tears that may have come with that. This is some of our stoneware that a lot of which is reassembled, but many of the jugs, they survive, which is awesome. And we have a really great collection of them. One of the things that I love about the stoneware in particular are the scratch jugs, because it was the poor man's way to get advertising out, as opposed to the printed, which was a little bit more expensive to produce. These are actually both made by the same artist as well, or the same pottery. It's John Bauer. And we know John Bauer because with scratch jugs, you have handwriting, and handwriting can be analyzed. And John Bauer made P's in a very specific and certain way, as well as Y's and the L. And the story on this particular jug is even better, because this is M. Hogland, and he had a mercantile business at the corner on Shelby Street, which is not too far away from here. And he opened the business in 1900. He died in 1902 at the age of 40, and the business sold immediately. And so this jug, we know almost the exact date, because it falls within 2 years, and we know who made it. And then the other thing that we know about it is that Moses Hogland raised, well, up until he was 40, was the father of 5 young girls, and they lived at 1023 Mary Street. We are at 1005 Mary Street. So this is an artifact that we can trace to a human being who lived on the street, who owned a business around the corner, and we can learn about his entire family from just the record of this one stoneware piece. And that's an example for me of what we want to do with this museum, which is to find those stories, to tell those stories. Sometimes we'll make those stories up if we have to elaborate the experience, but we have pharmacies that are there's a pharmacist. The bottle is labeled, and the bottle will have the address on it, and so we can actually go and find the building if it is extant, and photograph it and preserve the story behind not only the pharmacist but the pharmacist's family, and as they existed in the city of Louisville and what they contributed to the city of Louisville, etc. And by the way, this is just a tip of the iceberg of the number of bisque dolls and toys that we're finding. Marbles were a big thing, of course, and I have a lot of marbles. And we have this amazing little glass tomahawk head, which is a souvenir, most likely from, or possibly from, either cave country, uh, or it could have been at Fountain Ferry, which was an amusement park over in the west side of town. And they would have sold things like that for kids to take away. We find a lot of smoking pipes, a lot of, I'm sorry, I'm going to go back over. That's a glass syringe right here that has a green glass stopper in it, which would have had a cork affixed to it to help with the plunging. And of course, the needle is gone because all the metal in the basement goes away. We find broken thermometers, so I'm digging through lots of mercury and lead and all sorts of fun things. Um, these are the tiniest little mini jugs. This one in particular, which you won't be able to see, but is also made by John Bauer. It has his name on the outside, and then it says pottery spelled incorrectly on purpose, I believe. On the back, it only has one T, but just it's phenomenal things like that, and these figurines that for the most part will never be restored, but we do get enough of some pieces so that we can display and share some of the wonderful beauty that the Victorians had in their homes. This is my table where I like to give an example of in one viewing of all of the kinds of things that we have. These are toy guns and just a selection of, we have shoes, clothing, shards and shreds, and buttons and insulators. These are spark plugs because we span into the very early days of automobiles. We have a lot of medical waste. These are made of vulcanite, which was made by the Goodyear Company, and it is an early form of vulcanized rubber, a precursor to what we know as plastic. And it survives very well after 120 years, as opposed to, I can't imagine what a plastic bottle would look like in 120, 150 years. Amazing, speaking of some of the medical things that we do find. This is a suction piece. It's a leather bag and a vulcanite spout, I guess you would say, or whatever. But like, for suctioning babies' ears and nostrils, etc., that kind of stuff. We got doorknobs, lots of stoneware pieces, stoneware lids, just amazing bits of everyday Victorian life in Louisville, Kentucky. And I love this combo right here because we are in Louisville and the fleur-de-lis is our symbol. Oh, shoot. Sorry about the shadow. We'll come up. This is a great tile that probably a fireplace surround of the fleur-de-lis. We find a lot of tiles. And then this, again, another amazing, amazing piece. She's ceramic. There's no mark. Sometimes they have the maker's mark. This only has a number, which is probably a mold number. And just all sorts of fun things, buttons. This is some clothing. There's a great story behind this bottle. This is a product called Juniper Berry Gin, and it was made by the Quinine Whiskey Company here in Louisville, Kentucky. And they produced this. It came out, they introduced it, I should say, in 1906. And unfortunately, in 1906, and the bottles are beautiful. They're embossed on all sides, and they have the gorgeous colored label, and they're this beautiful aqua. Well, in 1906, as I said earlier, the Pure Food and Drug Act was enacted, and that meant that you couldn't say cure on anything. And juniper berry gin was considered a medicinal gin to cure kidney and liver and bladder problems. So they immediately, in that year, had to destroy all of their bottles. They couldn't use them because the glass itself is embossed with the word cure. We find broken juniper berry gin bottles by the hundreds. And I actually, someone has donated an intact one because they're, I cry every time I find a broken one because they're just beautiful bottles and it's such a great story. So I have my one intact one, and the exhibit for that piece will be that bottle suspended over a pile of broken juniper berry bottles with of course, the story about the uh, the Pure Food and Drug Act. So as I said before, we have found a few dolls, and these are going to be fun to figure out exactly how to create displays that make sense and don't horrify. I think that there is a great deal for worry on that side. When I post uh, fragments and doll heads and whatnot, I get a lot of comments from people uh, screaming about having nightmares, et cetera, et cetera. But it's really incredible. I'm going to try to point, but so this little head here, and those little legs are his legs. That's the torso. There are two eyeballs floating in between the legs there. Where are we? There we are. And those are the eyeballs that came inside that head. Literally, I mean, they're not even an eighth of an inch big. Okay. As you can see, it is vast. Everything that you can see in the distance is an artifact or an artifact in waiting to be completed with hopefully the rest of its uh, body, whatever. We have amazing rusted things. We have a clock. We have ice skates. We have a roller skate. We have coffee grinder, ice tongs, uh, stocking clips. Or what do you say? Garter clips, scissors, and other fun artifacts. I'm going to try to make a quick transition upstairs because I'd like to show you all our collections room and to verify that we are actually indeed serious about this venture. I'm not just this crazy guy who is excavating and preserving all this stuff. So I'm going to run upstairs. By the way, our museum will be at least 4,000 square feet. So we have a lot of room for displays. So this is the collections room currently, and every shelf is numbered and lettered, and every item has a unique number in our database, which, thanks to the Filson Historical Society, we were turned on to the Past Perfect software, and so we catalog as we restore. We are entering things into the database with their descriptions and any other identifying marks and whatnot, and telling stories that we can through research. The internet has been very helpful. We have everyday things like soap dishes. We have fancy china. We have lots of teacups. This is a sweet little teacup here. This is a children's cup with their, I unfortunately can't remember the name of the characters. Oh, but they're very specific. Uh, and it was a line of wares that had these characters, these plump little kids. Boy with his drum. Hair receivers. That's what this is, and this over here. So when the Victorian ladies were brushing their hair, they would clean their hairbrushes and shove the hair into that hole and save it for making rats or maybe making artwork. Who knows? This is a particularly gorgeous piece. I just love the asymmetry of the pattern on this piece. And boxes and boxes of bottles. These are all ID'd with their numbers, products, heights. We have Louisville food jars, companies specifically uh, kept together, and then national products as well. And this brings me to this. I wanted to talk about stoneware in this time period. So we're finding a ton of broken jars, which is what these pieces are referred to as, and um, as well as the bottles and jugs. And it occurred to us that this is a transitional period where stoneware was being phased out as a useful storage commodity for food and being replaced by glass. When you think about the convenience of the ball jar for storing your food in, you can actually see inside the jar. You can see if it's spoiled. And the stoneware, as convenient and sexy as it was, it just you marked the outside, I guess, and but they kept trying to innovate and create new and exciting forms just to keep the stoneware market open. But it died in this period with the transition to glass storage and glass bottles. And this handsome gentleman, he, as I said, we are in Germantown, and this and our period is the late 19th century up to 1920 and ending in 1920. So the Spanish flu epidemic of 1819, as well as World War One. And this, my friends, is Otto von Bismarck. He was the Chancellor of Germany, a celebrated war hero in the 1890s. And unfortunately, this sculpture, I don't think, survived the Great War. Because it wasn't cool to be German and celebrate German war heroes in Louisville, Kentucky in 1918. Just my theory, and I'm going to stick with it. This guy is really fabulous. He's from the Happy Hooligans series, which was an English comic series, comic newspaper comics, and they were these hobos. And this is the dapper Mount Morrissey with his mutton chops and this weird little dog cat head attached to him. And it took me forever to really figure it out. First of all, that they went together because I found them separately. But then I started looking at it and I realized it's a match holder. And that ribbing right there is the strike. Because kitchen matches, we didn't, the match books, I don't think were created until the 30s, maybe in the 20s. Um, I don't even, and I have no idea how I am on time, but so nod at me or wave at me if I need when we need to go to questions. Because basically, we have, as I've said, we're cataloging, we're IDing, we're creating the basis for the stories that we want to tell, and but we're still. This is all uncatalogued material. Every single box here is full and waiting to be entered into the database. But everything that's in a box that you can see is marked, numbered, and ID'd. And we have everything from kitchenwares, these great kitchen mixing bowls, stacking bowls. This is a it's a bedpan. um, hospital grade, no less. It's porcelain. And to be uh, partnered with a chamber pot. The chamber pot was donated, and we do not discourage that idea, but it is from our period. It is the anemone pattern, and it's from England. And the reason I accepted the donation is because I had excavated this fragment, it's three pieces, and it exactly marries the form. It is not the same pattern and it is not the same mold, but it is most likely made by the same people. And just a different, the only thing that's different about the mold is the embossing on the outside. This is our reconstruction area. And all of these pieces that have blue tape on them still are waiting to be restored. We use product endorsement, Elmer's clear glue because it's reversible. And this is a piece I just glued yesterday. And I'm very excited about it because it took us about 2 months to excavate all the various pieces of it. And that's another interesting part of the whole story of the Midden is that this was a managed dump. So they were coming in and they were distributing the trash as it came in, but then the pile might get too big on this side, and so they have to go in with their shovels and spread it around, and so it is managed chaos what we are excavating through. It's very rare for an entire piece to be all in one location. And sometimes we will find a piece of something on one side of the building, and then 2 years later, we're excavating and we come across yet another piece of it. And I can walk over and boom, they fit together. And it's exciting, it's wonderful, but at the same time, it's also very frustrating because we end up with pieces like this, which is a piece of Rhine ware from Germany. There's the German spelling of Rhine, and it's scenes of castles and mountains and the river. And it's a souvenir cup. It actually has decoration inside as well. And I have found bits and pieces of it over an area that is at least 20 yards long. And I, I just came across two more pieces of it after having first excavated it at least 3 years ago. So I, I'm I'm at a point probably. I mean, just to give you a sense, we are at a point where we're we're getting the collection organized. We are we have a board of directors, and we're starting to raise money. As I said, we're building this museum from the groundhog up, literally, and we are in a capital raising phase so that we can begin doing actual work on the building and to begin to move forward. Our timeline is probably 2 to 3 years before we'll ever open the doors. But we do give private tours right now because the collection is in a state where you can see it, you can explore it and touch it and learn from it. So we're very open to that, and it's going to help us as we move forward to have opinions and thoughts and feelings and whatnot. So I think at this point, I'd like to open up for questions.
Yeah,
And I'm
that
going to
sounds great, Patrick. Um, Folks, if you have questions, please shout them out. I'm sure you do. But if you don't, I've got a few to ask as well. But I want to open that up to everybody on here on the call. All right. Well, while you have your thinking caps on, um, Patrick, can you tell us a little bit about the people behind this operation? Obviously, you're a huge part of everything, but who are the kinds of volunteers that you've been working with to help you achieve this monumental project?
Well, of course, right now our board it's a selected board, and we have I chose people because they have certain skills to bring to the table, and that includes we have a lawyer, Chuck Dobbins, who is a Tilford Dobbins primary lawyer, and he specializes in nonprofit law. So we're very happy to have him on board. And Mose Putney is also an architect, and he is going to help us with the designs and implementing our ideas and translating them into reality. Lisa Pisterman works for the Louisville Archives, and she has been doing research for the project for almost since the beginning. I'd say about a year into it, she discovered me through social media and showed up at my door and just was like, I want to be part of this project, which is she's awesome. And we've learned so much about the neighborhood, the structure of as the sewer lines were being laid, as Beargrass Creek was being rerouted. We learned about the flood, about how the flood got into our basement, the 37 flood. I don't know if I said that. And Also about the Pohl family that built the building, that built the house next door for their family. And but also, so on the board, we have Karen Abney, who is a graphic designer, and she's donating her talent. Um, and Jerry Moffett. Jerry Moffett is a lifelong bottle collector and expert, and has just been invaluable. He loves digging. So for 5 years, I dug by myself. And we're going 6 feet down below the floor levels. That's when we hit the water tables. So I have excavated 2/3 of the basement solo, and Jerry has come on, and we also have had Miles Gabrielle Burke, who is a 20-year-old version, he's 21 now, of Jerry. So Jerry's a lifelong bottle collector. He's my age. Miles is 19, 20, 19 when he first came. And he discovered bottles and collecting during the pandemic. So and he's mind-blowingly great. I actually, if you go to our Instagram, which is Mary Street Midden, you can meet these guys. Jerry has done some pieces talking about bottles and Miles as well. Also, Daniel Evans is a local art potter, and he is a wealth of knowledge about stoneware, porcelain, etc. And he loves to come and clean the shards. He gets a kick out of being hands-on with these. We talk about the evidence that's still there, fingerprints and wipings that show the hand of the artist from 150 years ago, and you get goosebumps. And Karen Eves is another researcher who comes in. I gave a lecture in New Albany, or I'm sorry, in Jeffersonville a couple years ago, and she attended the lecture, and she came up afterwards and was just like gushing and wanted to help. And she has a knowledge, appreciation of fine porcelain, and so she's been helping do research, and she just loves it. She's retired, and so it gives her something to do, and she's been invaluable. Uh, and and then we have other volunteers that are stepping on board they're helping with the databasing with and throughout the time people have come and gone, but people helping to clean. But it's right now the main thing that we really need and has been a great help is actually the cataloging, because it's tedious. It's fascinating, but it's tedious. And um, and we have a vast collection, as you've gotten a taste. Um, and we're at the stage too now where once we have some money coming in, I want to bring in museum professionals, because I'm not. Yeah, I have worked for museums. I have run an art gallery. I am now a uh, partial expert on stoneware, fine china, bottles, medicine bottles, quackery, all of that stuff. But that's only a couple of years worth of knowledge, and we need people who are museum professionals to come in and help us really sort through the plans for how we want to exhibit, what stories we want to tell, and what stories we want to hold back, because the museum will evolve. We'll have a couple of different galleries that have changing exhibits that will change, say, every 8 months or something. And I also, a very important part of the story is that I'm a visual artist, and I made art from found objects for 30 years before I even knew that my studio was built on a dump. So I want, as part of the experience in this museum, that the very last gallery you go to before you leave is an art gallery that houses contemporary artists and on a rotating basis. And I want artists from all over the world. I've got some collectors, art collectors that I believe will partner with us to help us exhibit really important artists who are making art from trash, about what we're doing to the world, what we're, the legacy that we're leaving. And I want that to be the final experience as you move through this history lesson. It's a science, culture, history, and we want to look toward the future. And we'll do that through the eyes of artists.
That's awesome. I've got two questions for you from our group. The first one's from Jim Seaver, and he says, you had mentioned that you'd found items that once held traces of mercury and lead. What precautions have you had to take while working on this project, and what other hazards have you had to take into consideration?
Uh, well, I also have done radon tests in the basement, because as we're, exposing the soil, thankfully, this part of the city is not inundated with radon like some parts of the city are. The mercury is, because it's quicksilver, it does tend to go away, disperse, break down very, very quickly, very rapidly. Lead, asbestos, those are the things that worry me more. And I do wear a respirator, a very industrial respirator, and I suit up in coveralls, etc. I didn't at very first, because I didn't know what I had. I didn't know what I was dealing with. I did wear a dust mask. So, but I do go to the doctor regularly, and we do lung exams and whatnot. So, because I am very aware of my health in this, as it regards this process. Thanks for asking.
And this is another question from Ann Neeren. Ann says, how are you maintaining the integrity of the home while digging? Which is interesting. So can you tell us a little bit about the excavation site under the house and what
Sure.
that sort of looked like?
Yes, and basically like I said, we've been going down 6 feet at a time, and then when we feel like we're uh, reaching a stopping point, whether we hit solid clay or we hit the water table, because once you hit the water table, you just can't keep going. It's moist and muddy and soupy, but we move in segments. So excavate down in an area, and then you move forward and you backfill as you go forward. So the new dirt that we're excavating is backfilling on the space where we just were. And I will bring in gravel if need be. We have a, a a a former foundation out back from where there was a garage that is getting broken up, and those chunks of concrete are coming in to fill as we go. There will be structural repairs that have to be done, but not from what we've been doing. They're actually from the flood of 37 that got into the basement and damaged the structure, the floor itself, because when the building was built in 1920, this is 17 years later. It's been sitting on rotting food and decaying trash for that period. And then floodwaters get into the basement and get under the slab and created voids, or the voids were already there. And so the slab actually literally raised up, it floated. And it's technically a floating slab. It's not attached to any of the walls. It's poured after the building's built. And when it settled back down, it settled where it could settle, which was it broke. It found the lowest points in all throughout the basement. So I have a structural engineer, Aaron Daly of the Sendler Campbell Company, one of the oldest structural engineering companies in the city, and he has come in, examined the basement, and he has offered to do pro bono work for us to restore and repair anything that needs restoring and repairing, and to get it also to anticipate new loads that are going to come from the what's happening upstairs with the museum and more foot traffic, et cetera. But that's exciting, very exciting.
I guess to close us out, is there anybody who has another question? Okay. Well, oh, go ahead. Oh, okay. Guess not. So I have one last question, Patrick, and
Okay.
this is coming from someone who knows how hard of a question this is, and probably all of us know how hard of a question this is. But do you have a favorite object that you've
No.
brought out?
I'd have to go back downstairs, but it was the recent subject of one of two of our Instagram posts recently, and it's known as a rectal dilator. Uh, it, uh, they were sold in sets of four by the Young Company, and they were meant for helping with issues of constipation. So the rectal dilator, it was four progressive sizes. It got bigger. And this is it's probably the number two of the four. And it has a patent date on it of 1892. And when I first, this is actually probably a good finishing story for my naivete. When I first dug it, I didn't know what it was. I thought it was some kind of fancy, like, bottle stopper that might, because it's made out of vulcanite, so it's the same brown hard plastic, hard rubber. And I actually did a post on Instagram because I found a bottle that it fit in, and I did a series of photos of me like, look what I found. I think it's this great champagne stopper. Does anybody know? And pictures of it, and it blew up. People were like, Patrick, I'm sorry, but I think that's anatomical. And then somebody they found and sent me an ad from the Young Company for their rectal dilators and showing our piece in the collection. And I'm like, okay, all right. Well, I just embarrassed myself. Hopefully we won't do that again.
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you, Patrick, so much for your time today. I think I can speak on behalf of all of us that this is fascinating. This blew my mind in person. It blew my mind again virtually. So um, thank you again. And
Yeah,
folks, I dropped in the chat information about the Mary Street Midden, but you can also reach out to me, Jessica, for more information. And if you want to get connected up with Patrick, I can do that as well. So thank you
great.
all so much for your time today. And Patrick, thank you for your
Thank
time.
you. Yay. It was a pleasure.
Okay, thank you all so much, and I'll see you later.